It's part 6 of the Luxembourg Bridge campaign. Previously, we were helping out the Comitern in World War III by fighting for Egypt. Our air force in the meantime caused a bit of a kerfuffle by nuking what remained of Belgium, which caused their downfall. We eventually went on to win our little Middle Eastern theatre, and decided to come back to help in Britain, where a massive Soviet invasion is ongoing, and we're still nuking things. By the time my forces got here, it was actually going very well, so I didn't help all that much. We just kind of stormed up towards the front line, but the front line was advancing just as fast as we were for the most part. And we actually see the United Kingdom will capitulate before we get into any action. While this means it's not necessarily our victory, we can claim some help because us nuking London probably contributed to the speed at which the Soviets took over the place. We should have saved our nuke for after we showed up, so that it would look like it was more us doing the work. So that's the UK capitulated, but the UK Empire is still broadly at war, so we have to fight the Raj and Canada, massive areas that have plenty of troops, meaning even the fighting in the United Kingdom is not going to be over. We do a bit of post-capitulation help by storming Newcastle, so there we go, we did do something in the end. But yes, we have to deal with the fact that the Raj is going to be sending millions of troops all over the world since they're such a big faction. In the end then, we kind of still are fighting the United Kingdom's wider empire. They're not really capitulated, and we'll see that does make a difference. We go on to attack Glasgow, so there we go, we contributed somewhat in a more material sense just after capitulation, fighting all the non-United Kingdom troops that happen to be defending the United Kingdom and thus don't surrender or anything after the capitulation. We're going to plough on towards the top of the island. Meanwhile, there is still the Hell War going on back in the Netherlands. They've just been attacking Amsterdam for years now, I don't even know how long. It's Stalingrad 2, Amsterdam Good Time Edition. And because I wanted to free up the massive number of Allied troops here and stop them constantly dying, by Allied I mean Comitern that is, I decided to nuke Amsterdam. So there we go. I think that's the third place we've nuked so far. Perhaps it won't be the last. That's going to kill like half the troops defending that tile, and there were quite a few there. Doesn't appear to immediately allow our allies to do anything. I think we did take one extra part of the Netherlands after the nuking, but the Hell War continues. Now we're going to go on to attack Ireland, because we're at war not only with the remaining bits of the United Kingdom at the top, but the wider Republic of Ireland. So we'll just storm on in. This proved to be quite easy though, because they barely had any troops and many of the regions had nothing in them. So we can storm forwards, especially since the Soviets, as you can see, did send a few things to fight over here as well. Overall, not much is happening. We have started the manufacture of jet fighters, so our air force is going to be upgraded soon. That will be exciting. My current air force is going to help out with the endless hell going on in the Netherlands. That might help a bit. I'm guessing the strategic bombers might be able to weaken their forts or something. Maybe that will make a difference. Now, the island war goes pretty fast, as mentioned, but we kind of folded them up into this corner near Dublin. Then things slowed down as we gradually killed them. They started being entrenched and stuff, and many of the Soviet troops that were here walked off to do other things. But we helped out, of course, always seeking to be the tip of the spear. We drive towards Dublin. There was a lot of fighting here, a lot of lost battles as we attempted to attack the city, but over time we were reducing their organization by sheer spam tactics. They're just going to get bored of fighting us all, even though they're killing us pretty well. And because they're stuck in a corner, the divisions with low organization get deleted, and that's going to cause a chain reaction as the enemy get weaker and weaker. And that's all good for us. So Ireland is going to capitulate in a minute, and that will be the end of that. However, the war in this area isn't going to be over, because while we were doing all this, there was a big counter-invasion. We saw a load of troops from Canada and the Raj show up and start retaking territory in southern Britain. This is going to turn into a repeating trend. Basically, there's too much stuff out there for us to kind of declare the United Kingdom dead, because all the places that want to make it again are still going strong. At least there's Ireland capitulating, but yes, we're going to move right on to go back to the war that we missed earlier, essentially, but now we're the defenders of the United Kingdom against the United Kingdom's friends, and we arrive just in time to shore up a bit of defence near Bristol and stop their advance. And now we're going to be able to make a difference, because there are loads of units that are unentrenched and are on low organisation, having been trying to attack us. So even our small force can make a big difference. As we push in, we can cut off the stuff to our east from this location by just going right for the coast as soon as possible. And that works pretty well. The cut off stuff gets killed by our allies over there. And we end up kind of choke pointing a fairly large army into a small area. We're pushing them down into Cornwall, getting defeated on the way, but it is happening. So while there are now loads of enemy troops and loads of stuff down there, it's kind of stuck in the corner, nice and easy to deal with. Although it also makes it hard to attack because we're going to be choke point against them and might have to make some difficult attacks. As it happens though, we can sort of zigzag down this little peninsula and trap the enemy mostly around Plymouth where their defences are concentrated, and we sort of start surrounding them here. Although the enemy's massive local numerical advantage will now come into play. Here's some good news though, I finally look back to the Hell War. It's over. I'm sure it was us nuking things that caused that to end, so that's all good. There are plenty of other wars going on across the world that I haven't been paying too much attention to. We're still sort of winning in that Middle Eastern theatre, but not in the Iraqi theatre. We'll have to decide where we go after the United Kingdom kerfuffle, which isn't quite over, because this Plymouth bastion is going to be very difficult for us to deal with. It was a while ago when I played this, I can't remember what my plan was, but from the footage it certainly seems like we're setting up for some nuclear action. I'm checking air superiority and sending bombers into the theatre, so we are now ready to nuke Plymouth. But I don't do it right away, even though we could, because I'm apparently trying to push that pocket off to the west in there. Perhaps it's because we only actually have one nuke left at the moment, so we want to concentrate everything in there to maximise the damage. What ends up happening though is something a bit different. Apparently I was never able to push stuff back over there, and then I just stopped. I decided to walk off and go to the ports and just not contest the theatre. We totally could have nuked Plymouth there and killed loads of stuff, a great opportunity. Perhaps I was feeling sympathetic since I've been there in real life or something. I didn't want to nuke it. I ended up just walking away. And what I ended up doing after that is, after a while of sailing, we're down here in Venezuela for just no particular reason. I seem to have switched theatre. We're going to fight in Venezuela now. Perhaps I just wanted to get some more glory on the world tour. The hope is that by just suddenly jumping into one of these theatres, we can tip the balance. The problem with theatres like this is that we have loads of Comitern troops here that are eating up all the supplies, so everybody has no supplies as a result, and everyone's just dying. Meaning our side are just wasting loads of troops. We have massive numerical advantages that we can't do anything with because there's no organisation. Our arrival though does allow something to happen. We immediately run out of supplies also, but while we still have some organisation, we push west and win a battle, thus securing one more region. The goal though is to get towards Caracas, not only because it's a nice victory point, but there's another port there, so that might help out with the supply situation. And after waiting for my moment, we do go for it. Our organisation still declining, but I've built up a bit of the planning attack bonus as well, so we can use that to boost our stats and overcome the enemy's roughly equal numbers in the area. After that, we are stuck in Caracas essentially, because I just sat there hoping my supplies would come back and staring at this tooltip. I really feel like this supply system is so important that it needs more than being behind this 5x5 pixel icon, which is in itself in another very small user interface. Like, I wanted to know, how long do I have to stand here before I can get supplies? Are my supplies actually going up or down? Things like that. What is going on? There is a map mode, as some people mentioned in the comments, which I eventually discovered, although I'm not sure it helped me very much. As you can see, I was studying that so hard that I failed to notice a counterattack that actually cuts me off, although it's another case where we're cut off with a port, so it doesn't matter. We actually do get our supplies back apparently, and I can go and help out with re-securing that territory, and we go on to take the next one to the south as well, although by that point my supplies are out again. So this is going to be the pattern really. We can't really move anywhere without suddenly taking attrition and gradually losing all of our organisation. So we have a limited amount of time before we just have to leave the theatre entirely, because we'll just get stuck in with the Comitern troops permanently on 10 organisation or something. In this case, I noticed there was a pocket of Comitern troops that was cut off nearby, and I decided to save them. It took a while, but after some time, the territory I needed to take happened to be barely defended because lots of the troops were moving around and many of them walked off at an opportune moment. So we moved on in and retook it. We just barely hold it against a counterattack because this is at the stage now where we're out of organisation. We've been out of supply for long enough that we can't regen organisation very fast at all. But at least we're the heroes, we got some Comitern troops out of trouble there. Here's me a bit later actually looking at the supply map mode while I waited at Caracas to try and get my supplies back, and you might note there that none of them are going to the Caracas port. I don't know what that means, and I don't know what to do about it, all part of a good supply system. So, I ended up thinking we're probably going to have to just leave to resolve this, or we're literally just going to die standing there. So I was looking around, wondering if there was anything else better we could do. The United Kingdom still controls pretty much all of Africa, and they're starting to re-control Britain. Stuff's showing up, perhaps that's the Plymouth pocket breaking out, I don't know, should have nuked them earlier. Seeing that I thought, well, we better go back, because we can at least participate in another war for the United Kingdom. We kind of missed the first one, so if there's another one, we should be there to grab some glory. With that, we're going to start going all the way back to France, and then we'll see how things look once we get back. I think my air force is still there, helping at the moment, so that's something. And we did help in the Venezuelan front. We pushed the front line forwards, although that may not help since our allies just aren't helping due to lack of supplies. Now, back in Britain. Once we arrive, things look better, but I don't really know how. You can see the enemy have lost most of their territory, but our side doesn't have any troops here, so there's nothing to stop the enemy coming back and taking all of the United Kingdom at this stage. I think the Comitern troops sort of partially defeated the UK and then walked off, perhaps following my example from earlier. So we actually do arrive just in time because they apparently found out and were starting to just recapture all of this undefended territory. We arrived to make a choke point and stop them from breaking out here. Absolutely optimal timing. We quickly win a few battles and can now push them back the other way while their organisation is low. So there you go. Now I think we're claiming some true glory for the United Kingdom war. That could have gone very wrong. This one actually goes better than last time because we end up pushing right towards Plymouth, and because the enemy were just always on low organisation because they kept losing battles against us, we just didn't give them a chance to recover. Plus, by not going around Plymouth first, they don't concentrate there, so it's not as heavily defended. Thus we take it, that's going to cut off the enemy's supply lines now and stop them from getting their organisation back. This is more like it. A few same-side troops showed up to help us, and soon we folded them up into a pocket and just killed them all via the pocket unit deletion thing and spamming them until their organisation ran out. So like that, we actually took out a whole bunch of divisions, and finally we have taken all of the United Kingdom's core territories. Except for the Isle of Man actually, which Canada still controls. But we'll just ignore that in our propaganda. We have done it once again, so good work to the Luxembourgian vanguard. Looks like Allied forces are trying to invade France again and failing. I mentioned that this just keeps happening. They've done tons of naval invasions that lose every time, so the French Commune is holding on well. After that I thought, let's go somewhere else, let's go somewhere we haven't been yet. And I started looking down here to Africa, where there are lots of poorly defended regions, and there's a little bit of Comitern territory in the Ivory Commune, this white area. So we're going to show up and see if we can do anything there. On the way there, I decided to take a little bit of a look around, and we saw a bit of a chaotic situation going on in Asia. There is some classic World War III action happening here, but I'm not sure what exactly is happening. Some kind of crazy Swiss cheese arrangement has been made, but in some way it's the Soviets fighting the Republic of China. I think the socialist version of China is kind of also there, and that's causing the weird territory divide. We'll just not pay attention to that. The less said about it, the better. Maybe we'll go to Asia later and sort that out. For now, we're going to sort out Africa. And I actually have a pretty clear plan this time. Now that I'm more conscious of supply lines, and I'm aware that Africa's going to have no infrastructure, so supply lines will matter a lot more, I'm thinking, well, we'll just come to the coast and just sweep up all of the ports. We can just force all of the local UK troops to not be out of supply because they have ports like on the other side of the continent they can technically use, but to have really difficult supply lines. While that was happening, I was also helping out in the Middle East with my air force. We don't have that many planes, but some of our planes are jet fighters, so they're probably quite good. and I thought maybe that will make some difference there, but I wasn't really paying attention to it, and I won't pay attention to it in this video. The problem with capturing all these ports is that these regions are all super forested and stuff. It's going to take us ages to actually move from region to region, so it was very slow work. Plus this next region goes all the way up to the top of the screen there, so it was a weird shape, meaning it probably takes even longer to get into it due to how the game presumably calculates the distance between movement points. But anyway, it does work out slowly. We do roll up the enemy because they're not defending these ports with anything in particular. What I hope to see is all the stuff just to the north would then go into attrition mode because they can't supply themselves from distant ports due to the lack of infrastructure. But I guess they can, because it didn't happen. It's still good for us to be doing this because it does mean we're going to be in supply with all 3 ports being used. But yes, it didn't have the effect I thought, where all of the local enemies would just start losing organisation and we could wait them out and then spread out and quickly conquer everything before anyone noticed and before we ran out of supplies. That was the thought. But we end up sitting in this pocket around the ports. We don't have enough troops to spread out over the number of regions here. We need some Comitern armies to show up, but then there'll be no supplies again, so bit of an issue. The game's trying to crash again there, that's also an issue, but in this case we managed to hack our way through it. I was too ambitious with my game speed or something perhaps. And at this stage I then remembered, wait a minute, we control Iceland for some reason as our puppet state. So I can actually take the Icelandic army and have them help me out with this. There's going to be a bit of climate issue, the acclimatization issue I should say, because all these guys with cold acclimatization are being sent into the tropical jungles. But we'll do it anyway. We've got 6 divisions, each having 6 infantry companies or regiments, whatever they are, in it. Not really that good, but useful for just plugging this front line, because you can see we've expanded our front line with a bit of help from Comitern troops. And now it's way too big for us to defend. It's also difficult for us to attack because we can't really concentrate anywhere and do anything useful. Like, we might be able to push out into the jungle, but we couldn't defend that extended front line, so we just have to come back. What I end up trying to do is push to the west to link up with the bits of territory we've been cut off from, while the Iceland troops are just going to defend the ports and ignore everything else using that full-back line. So the enemy will start encroaching upon our lands again. And then something disappointing happened. I came to look at what was happening back in Europe, and it's over. The United Kingdom is fully back. We have undefeated them. I don't know what happened, and I was really annoyed by this because I thought we had the advantage with their core territory being gone, but they just got it back somehow. I figured that because they'd capitulated, they were kind of surrendered and they wouldn't try to get it back so much, but they've uncapitulated, so all that stuff earlier just didn't happen anymore, and that's really inconvenient. We've made a massive amount of back progress. I can blame the Soviets for this. I'm guessing they just didn't try to defend, as we saw them not doing earlier. If we're not there, the United Kingdom just can't be held down. Very inconvenient. Their presence there will mean we're going to be back to the unlimited sequence of naval invasions happening in Europe. As mentioned, I wasn't paying too much attention to them because this is like the 30th time they've tried it. But the worry is at some point they will try it and I just won't see because there are no notifications for stuff happening off screen, so need to pay a bit of attention in case they actually break through and Luxembourg itself gets taken by someone. Anyway, my current plan is to head west with my Luxembourgian forces to try and get to the next port along the coast. There's me looking to see if I can get some more Iceland boys, but unfortunately not. We need more troops than we have to really hold down this front. I was able to advance one region to the west, but then the next region, the one with an airfield and a naval base in it and a capital, unfortunately was more heavily defended and we just got defeated instantly whenever I tried to attack. So we're not going to have much luck here. I did try to attack a couple more times, but there was absolutely no chance of success, nowhere near doing any organisation damage to them. Plus we started to come under pressure as the local UK forces are now going up against our Iceland army defending those ports, and they do also get cut off from the Ivory Commune and the Luxembourg army. Nasty stuff. At this stage I started thinking, this isn't going anywhere, it's not going to achieve anything. We might just have to call off our African campaign. There's not enough infrastructure for us to achieve anything strategic. We'll just leave it to the United Kingdom and look for something more damaging to attack. My mind started going back to the unfinished business in Venezuela, the front lines are still pretty much where they were when we left them. Not much is happening. We've got massive numerical superiority and no organization as the Comitern spams units here, but it's just way too much and we can't get the AI to not do this. The AI is causing us to lose by being too strong. Very inconvenient. But anyway, looking at that made me think perhaps we should just go back and try to again get our fresh-faced advantage by immediately winning our first attack before we run out of supplies. That's always an option, and it became a bit of an imperative after the UK actually started pushing the Iceland boys back. We need to leave, otherwise they'll get deleted once they're surrounded. So we do send both the Luxembourgian forces and the Iceland boys, the Ice Boys as they're called, to go and attack a different part of the Venezuela front, because there was one little chunk of territory that was holding up a massive number of Comitern troops, but there wasn't all that much actually there. It was just that our allies couldn't be bothered to kill them or didn't have the organization, although those guys on the left side of the screen certainly could have made this attack that I'm making. They just didn't for some reason, so we show up and we can immediately shorten that front line, take that little red bit of territory, and then we'll focus in on the tan bit of territory. That's more heavily defended though. They're going to be fully entrenched and some of them are on mountain tiles as well, so it's more difficult. What I wanted to do is go around the other side and then make a naval landing behind the enemy's front lines. You can see me trying to do this and discovering once I got to the very last stage of the process that I can't because I don't have naval superiority. So we can't cheekily sneak along. It's weird that we can move our troops internationally with no consequences, but we can't make landings. We can't just drive the boats up the beach or something. So that ends up coming to nothing, and while I was sitting there I noticed a lot of the Comitern forces had walked off. I'm guessing they finally decided to go do something else, leaving the right side of the front line here very undefended. And we're going to make it deliberately worse. I pull back to sit just at Caracas and then monitor the enemy's movements. What we can do is essentially allow them to move out deeper into the continent so that we can move along the coast, because all we want to do is go along the coast up to the next port. That will allow us to get more supplies and cut the enemy off. And it completely worked, way better than expected. The enemy committed a massive amount of their troops to defending one random territory there, that salient you can see, and we just walked past them and quickly cut them off. These guys are being supplied from this port. The port itself is too heavily defended for us to take, but we can not only stop the enemy from getting back in by defending the strait, but now all of this tan area is cut off. Eritrea has left the allies who are our enemies, so that's good news, I suppose. Doesn't last too long, there they are joining again. Anyway, now we need to attack the pocket we've created. This goes pretty well because our allies actually did help us out here, and we were quickly able to get into this sort of infinite defeat chain for the enemy, where they're moving about, and every time they move somewhere, they encounter us trying to move in at the same time. So while it doesn't really look like it because of how the game portrays where things are, we're pinballing the enemy armies about and making sure they're constantly losing small, like really short fights, which prevents their organization from regenning. And gradually they're going to be moved into smaller and smaller bits of territory. Then we just have to win battles there and everything gets deleted, and as I said that, well, it's happened. We just took out all of the enemy divisions in the area real fast. It went way better than expected. And after that, the only thing left is that island at Curacao, I think it is, that they have out there. So what we're going to do is have the Iceland boys defend the coast and stop them from coming back and retaking all of this territory. We'll just sit here. Supplies will probably be an issue, but this army isn't as big as it looks due to the small division size. And while they do that, the Luxembourgian army is going to continue the world tour, because I noticed the British Raj is being heavily invaded by the Comitern. So I thought, let's go and try to make this work. If we can take the Raj out of the game, that's going to make a long-term occupation of the United Kingdom more viable, because it's places like the Raj that are just going and taking it back, I presume at least. So that will be part 7, the Luxembourgian campaign in India.
Dem haben wir es geschworen.